They say love finds you when you least expect it. It's a beautiful thought, comforting, romantic. But what if that's only half the story? What if the real reason the man of your dreams hasn't appeared yet has nothing to do with bad luck, bad timing, dating apps, or fate? What if the greatest obstacle to finding lasting love isn't outside of you, but something hidden within you? Today, we're going to explore a truth that has changed countless lives. A truth Carl Jung understood over a century ago. A truth Steve Harvey has shared in his own way with millions of women around the world. Because love isn't something you chase, and it isn't something you accidentally stumble upon. Real love begins long before you meet the right person. It begins the moment you truly meet yourself. Welcome to the Love and Relationship Lab, where love meets psychology, emotional intelligence, and timeless wisdom. If you're looking for deeper insights into love, relationships, and personal growth, then you're in the right place. Before we begin, could you do me a favor? Please subscribe to help this channel grow. Share this video with someone who may need to hear this message today. And as you watch, I'd love to know in the comments, which idea resonates with you the most? Your story could inspire someone else who is on the same journey. Now, let's begin. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about those words for a moment. How many people believe they're simply unlucky in love? How many tell themselves, "I always attract the wrong people. Every relationship ends the same way. Maybe I'm just not meant to find real love." But what if none of those things are actually true? What if your relationships aren't random at all? What if they're reflections, mirrors showing you parts of yourself that are still waiting to be understood? Most people believe they're searching for the perfect partner. Very few realize they're actually searching for the parts of themselves they haven't yet discovered. This is why two people can meet the exact same person and have completely different experiences. One feels appreciated, the other feels rejected. One experiences peace, the other experiences anxiety. The difference isn't always the other person. Often, it's what's happening inside us. Steve Harvey once shared something remarkably simple. He said that before asking what kind of man you want, you should first ask, "What kind of woman are you becoming?" That's a powerful question, because it's easy to write a long list describing your dream partner. Kind, loyal, emotionally available, confident, honest, supportive, faithful, ambitious. But have you ever created a list describing the person you're becoming? Because love isn't simply about finding someone who meets your standards. It's about becoming someone who naturally attracts the kind of relationship you desire. Imagine trying to build a house on shifting sand. No matter how beautiful the house looks, eventually it begins to crack. Relationships work the same way. Without a solid foundation, attraction may happen, chemistry may happen, passion may happen, but lasting love struggles to survive. That foundation begins with knowing yourself. not your favorite color, not your hobbies, not your career. Those things matter, but they aren't who you are. Knowing yourself means understanding your deepest values. What brings you peace? What drains your energy? What makes you feel emotionally safe? What kind of communication allows you to flourish? What you will never compromise? And perhaps, even more importantly, what fears quietly influence your decisions? Because if you don't understand your fears will quietly choose your relationships for you. Jung believed much of our behavior is driven by the unconscious, parts of ourselves we've ignored, rejected, or buried. Perhaps you constantly choose emotionally unavailable partners, not because that's what you consciously want, but because somewhere deep inside, love became associated with earning approval. Perhaps growing up, affection felt unpredictable. Praise had to be earned. Attention wasn't freely given. Without realizing it, you learned that love required chasing. So, adulthood simply repeats the same emotional pattern. Different faces, same story. This is why self-awareness changes everything. It interrupts unconscious cycles. Steve Harvey often tells women, stop auditioning for a role in someone else's life. Think about that. How many people walk into relationships hoping they'll finally be enough? Enough to be chosen, enough to be loved, enough to be valued. But real love doesn't begin when someone else validates your worth. It begins when you stop asking for permission to believe in your own. The happiest relationships aren't built between two incomplete people, desperately trying to fix each other. They're built between two emotionally responsible adults who already know who they are. People often confuse loneliness with being ready for love. Those are two completely different things. Being lonely simply means you want companionship. Being ready means you've built a life someone healthy would actually want to join. There's a huge difference. Let's imagine two women. The first believes happiness depends entirely on finding a relationship. She ignores red flags because she's afraid of being alone. She overthinks every text message. She changes parts of herself to avoid rejection. Her happiness rises and falls depending on someone else's attention. The second woman also desires love, but she enjoys her own life. She has friendships, purpose, dreams. She knows what she deserves. She communicates honestly. She isn't afraid to walk away from situations that don't align with her values. Both women may meet the exact same man, but they will experience completely different relationships. Because people don't simply respond to your appearance. They respond to your energy. And energy is shaped by how you see yourself. Carl Jung believed becoming whole was life's greatest journey. He called it individuation, not becoming perfect. Becoming authentic. Learning to embrace both your strengths and your imperfections. Because the more comfortable you become with yourself, the less likely you are to accept relationships built on pretending. When you know yourself deeply, something remarkable happens. You stop confusing excitement with compatibility. You stop mistaking attention for commitment. You stop believing potential is the same thing as character. You become patient, not because you're giving up on love, but because you've stopped settling for less than what aligns with your soul. Here's something few people ever talk about. The man of your dreams is also searching. He may not know your name. He may not know where you live. But somewhere, he's also becoming. He's learning, growing, healing, preparing, just as you are. And when two people have done the inner work, their relationship feels different. There are still disagreements, still imperfections, still challenges, but there's also emotional safety, mutual respect, honesty, growth, not because either person is perfect, but because both people have learned that love begins within. And that leads us to the second key, because knowing yourself is only the beginning. Once you discover who you really are, you face an even greater challenge, having the courage to let the world see the real you. The quality of your relationships is deeply connected to the quality of your relationship with yourself. Knowing yourself isn't just the first step toward finding love. It's the foundation. But once you've discovered who you really are, another question naturally follows. Can you allow someone else to see that person? Because this is where many people unknowingly sabotage love. Not through bad choices, not through bad luck, but through wearing masks. Carl Jung devoted much of his life's work to understanding why human beings hide their true selves. He called one of these masks the persona. The persona is the version of ourselves we present to the world. The successful version, the strong version, the agreeable version, the version we believe people will accept. There's nothing wrong with having a persona. We all need one to function in society. The problem begins when we forget it's only a mask. When we start believing the mask is who we are. And nowhere is this more common than in dating. Welcome back to the Love and Relationship Lab, where love meets psychology and timeless wisdom. If you're enjoying this series, don't forget to subscribe and help this channel grow. Share this video with someone who may need to hear it today. And as always, let me know in the comments what part of this message speaks to you the most. Now, let's continue. Imagine meeting someone who seems absolutely perfect. They always know exactly what to say. They never disagree. They laugh at every joke. They seem endlessly easygoing. At first, it feels wonderful. But after a few months, something changes. You begin wondering, who are they really? Because perfection feels strangely distant. Real connection isn't built on perfection. It's built on authenticity. Steve Harvey often reminds women that the right relationship begins when you stop trying to become what everyone else wants. In his own words and advice throughout the years, he has encouraged women to stop settling for approval and instead become comfortable with who they truly are. Because pretending may attract attention, but authenticity attracts commitment. Think about that. A performance may get someone's attention, but only the real you can build a lasting relationship. Let's be honest. Almost everyone performs during the early stages of dating. Some hide their opinions because they don't want conflict. Some pretend they're fine when they're hurt. Some laugh when they actually feel uncomfortable. Others become whatever they believe the other person wants. If he likes hiking, suddenly she loves hiking. If she thinks men prefer independent women, she hides the fact that quality time is her primary love language. If she fears looking too emotional, she suppresses every feeling. At first, it seems harmless, but eventually it becomes exhausting, because maintaining a false version of yourself requires constant effort. Real love should never feel like acting. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Notice he called it a privilege, not something automatic, not something easy, because becoming yourself often means disappointing people who only loved the version of you that was convenient. That's frightening. Many people would rather remain accepted than become authentic. But here's the paradox. Every time you hide who you are to avoid rejection, you reject yourself first. Read that again. Every time you abandon your own truth to keep someone interested, you're teaching yourself that your real self isn't enough. That belief quietly shapes every future relationship. Let's imagine another example. Two women go on identical first dates. The first spends the evening trying to impress. She carefully measures every sentence. She avoids mentioning her real dreams because she fears sounding too ambitious. She laughs at jokes she doesn't actually find funny. She agrees with opinions she secretly disagrees with. The date ends well. He likes her, or at least, he likes the version she created. The second woman also wants the date to go well, but she speaks honestly. If she disagrees, she says so respectfully. If she's passionate about something, she lets it show. If she doesn't know an answer, she admits it. She isn't trying to win approval. She's trying to discover compatibility. Do you see the difference? The first woman asks, "How can I make him like me?" The second quietly asks, "Are we actually right for each other?" That one shift changes everything. Steve Harvey has often said that women sometimes spend so much energy trying to be chosen that they forget they're doing the choosing too. Healthy dating isn't an audition, it's an evaluation. You're not interviewing for the position of someone's partner. You're discovering whether both of you bring peace, trust, respect, and emotional maturity into each other's lives. That perspective immediately changes your energy. Instead of chasing, you become curious. Instead of performing, you become present. Instead of fearing rejection, you begin appreciating clarity, because every no from the wrong person moves you closer to the right one. Jung believed every human being carries what he called the shadow. These are the parts of ourselves we've learned to hide. Our fears, our insecurities, our mistakes, our vulnerability. Most people spend enormous energy pretending those parts don't exist. But here's what Jung discovered. The shadow doesn't disappear because we ignore it. It quietly influences everything we do. Imagine someone who secretly believes they aren't lovable. They may appear confident, successful, funny, popular, yet deep inside they constantly fear abandonment. Without realizing it, they become overly accommodating. They tolerate poor treatment. They apologize excessively. They avoid honest conversations because conflict feels dangerous. None of these behaviors began in adulthood. They're echoes from earlier experiences that were never fully understood. This is why healing matters, not because it makes you perfect, but because it allows you to respond to life instead of reacting from old wounds. Authenticity doesn't mean telling someone your entire life story on the first date. It doesn't mean sharing every insecurity immediately. Authenticity means allowing your outer life to reflect your inner truth. It means your words match your values. Your actions match your intentions. Your kindness isn't manipulation. Your confidence isn't arrogance. Your vulnerability isn't desperation. It's honesty. And honesty creates trust. Trust creates emotional safety. And emotional safety creates intimacy. Think about the people you trust most. Chances are, they're not the most impressive. They're the most genuine. You know where you stand with them. They don't pretend. They don't manipulate. They're consistent. That consistency is incredibly attractive. In today's world, authenticity has become surprisingly rare. People filter their photos, edit their personalities, hide their struggles, curate perfect lives online. Yet, inside, many feel profoundly lonely. Why? Because it's impossible to feel fully loved when people only know the version of you you've manufactured. Real love begins where pretending ends. Here's a question worth reflecting on tonight. If someone fell in love with the version of you that always says yes, always smiles, always keeps the peace, would they actually know you, or would they simply know your mask? That's a difficult question, but it's also a liberating one. Because the goal isn't attracting everyone. The goal is attracting the people who appreciate who you really are. Carl Jung believed that becoming whole required embracing both our strengths and imperfections, not hiding them, not apologizing for them, accepting them. Because when you accept yourself, something remarkable happens. You stop fearing rejection quite so much. You realize rejection isn't always personal. Sometimes it's simply evidence of incompatibility, and that's not failure. That's wisdom. When you remove the mask, you'll notice something surprising. Some people will naturally drift away. Don't panic. That's supposed to happen. Authenticity is a filter. It clears space. The people who appreciate the real you begin to appear. That's how meaningful relationships begin. Not through pretending, through truth. And once you've learned to live authentically, you're finally ready for something that protects everything you've built. Because knowing yourself isn't enough. Being authentic isn't enough. Without healthy boundaries, even the most genuine heart can slowly lose itself. By now, you've discovered two powerful truths. First, the quality of your love life begins with the quality of your relationship with yourself. Second, the right person can only fall in love with the real you, not the version you create to gain approval. But now we arrive at something that many people misunderstand. something that separates healthy love from emotional chaos. Boundaries. For some people, that word immediately sounds harsh, cold, unromantic, almost selfish. But nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, healthy boundaries are one of the greatest expressions of love, not only for another person, but for yourself. Welcome back to the Love and Relationship Lab, where we explore love through psychology, emotional intelligence, and timeless wisdom. If you've been enjoying this series, please take a second to subscribe. It helps this channel reach more people who may be searching for the very answers you're discovering today. And if this message speaks to you, share it with someone you care about. You never know who might need to hear it. Now, let's continue. Imagine buying your dream home. Beautiful rooms, large windows, everything you've ever wanted. But there's one problem. The house has no doors, no locks, no fence. Anyone can walk in, take what they want, leave whenever they please. Would you feel safe there? Of course not. Yet, emotionally, they allow anyone access to their peace, anyone access to their time, anyone access to their heart, without asking a single question, without expecting respect in return. Then they wonder why they feel exhausted, why they feel invisible. Boundaries are simply the doors to your emotional home. They exist to protect what makes love possible. Steve Harvey has often spoken about standards in relationships. One of his recurring messages is that people teach others how to treat them. Think about that. Every time you ignore disrespect, you silently communicate that it's acceptable. Every time you tolerate inconsistency, you teach someone they don't need consistency to keep you. Every time you abandon your own needs just to avoid conflict, you slowly convince yourself that your needs don't matter. Unhealthy people often do. And that's why boundaries are not walls. They are filters. Call. Why? Because once you truly value yourself, you naturally stop accepting treatment that diminishes you. You don't become arrogant. You become clear. There's an enormous difference. Arrogance says, "I deserve to be treated with dignity." One creates distance. The other creates healthy relationships. Let's look at two different women. The first fears disappointing people. She says, yes, even when she's exhausted, even when she doesn't want to. She answers texts immediately because she's afraid someone might lose interest. Broken promises, mixed signals, patient, easygoing. But little by little, she begins losing herself. Kind, compassionate, but she also respects herself. If someone repeatedly cancels plans, if someone speaks disrespectfully, she addresses it calmly. If someone disappears for weeks and suddenly returns as though nothing happened, she doesn't rush back. Not because she's playing games, because she values consistency. Notice something important. Neither woman is cruel. Neither woman is difficult. The difference is that one protects her peace, while the other sacrifices it. Many people believe boundaries scare good men away. But healthy men don't fear healthy boundaries. They appreciate them. Imagine meeting someone who clearly communicates, Who says what they mean? Who respects herself? Who also respects others? Wouldn't that feel refreshing? Of course it would. Healthy people don't want confusion. They want clarity. Boundaries create clarity. They answer questions before problems begin. They quietly communicate. This is how I treat people, and this is how I expect to be treated. That isn't demanding. It's mature. Steve Harvey often reminds women that they shouldn't lower their standards simply because they're afraid of being alone, because loneliness eventually passes. But settling for the wrong relationship can steal years of your life. Think about how many people stay in relationships because leaving feels scary. They tell themselves, maybe things will improve. I've already invested so much time. What if I never meet anyone else? Fear begins making decisions instead of wisdom. But fear has never built a healthy relationship. Only honesty can do that. Carl Jung spoke about something psychologists still discuss today. He believed we often project our unmet needs onto other people. In simple terms, sometimes we expect someone else to rescue us from wounds only we can heal. That's why boundaries matter, because they remind us where our responsibility ends and someone else's begins. You are responsible for your kindness, not for fixing another person's unwillingness to change. You are responsible for communicating honestly, not for controlling how someone responds. You are responsible for protecting your emotional health, not for carrying someone else's emotional baggage forever. Healthy love is shared, not carried by one person. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. People often mistake tolerance for love. I stayed because I loved him. I forgave her because I loved her. I kept giving chances because I loved them. Love is patient. Yes, love is forgiving. Absolutely. But love also requires wisdom. If someone repeatedly lies, love doesn't require you to ignore it. If someone constantly disrespects your boundaries, love doesn't ask you to accept it. If someone only appears when it's convenient, love doesn't demand endless availability. Real love honors both people, not just one. Imagine planting a beautiful garden. You water it, protect it, care for it every day. Would you allow strangers to trample through it whenever they pleased? No, not because you're selfish, because healthy things require protection. Your heart is no different. It deserves care, attention, discernment. Not because you're better than anyone else, because what is valuable should never be treated carelessly. Here's something that changes everything. The right man isn't looking for someone with no boundaries. He's looking for someone emotionally healthy enough to have them. Because a woman who respects herself is far more likely to respect the relationship too. She doesn't manipulate. She communicates. She doesn't punish. She explains. She doesn't create drama. She creates stability. That's incredibly attractive. Not because it's mysterious, because it's peaceful. And peace is becoming increasingly rare. There's another reason boundaries matter. They reveal character. Anyone can be charming for a few weeks. Anyone can say beautiful words. Promises are easy. Consistency isn't. The moment you establish healthy standards, people reveal who they really are. Some will become defensive. Some will guilt trip you. Some will disappear. Let them. Not every ending is a loss. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes the people who walk away are making room for the people who belong. Remember that. Carl Jung believed that becoming whole required integrating every part of yourself. The confident parts, the fearful parts, the hopeful parts, even the wounded parts. Healthy boundaries are evidence that this integration has begun. You're no longer seeking permission to value yourself. You're living as though your well-being matters. Because it does. And something extraordinary happens when you stop fearing the loss of people who cannot. Respect your boundaries. You become free to choose relationships instead of clinging to them. Free to love without abandoning yourself. Free to walk away without bitterness. Free to recognize that the greatest relationship you'll ever build is the one you have with yourself. And from that freedom, confidence naturally begins to grow. Not loud confidence, not the kind that needs attention, but the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I trust myself enough to wait for what aligns with my life. That quiet confidence may be the most attractive quality of all. If you've been with me from the beginning, you've already discovered something many people spend years trying to understand. The relationship you're looking for doesn't begin when you meet the right man. It begins the moment you begin becoming the right version of yourself. We've explored knowing yourself. We've talked about authenticity. We've discovered why healthy boundaries protect your heart instead of closing it. Now it's time for the final two keys that bring everything together: confidence and being open to possibilities. These aren't just personality traits. They're ways of living. They're the difference between chasing love and naturally attracting it. Welcome back to the Love and Relationship Lab, where psychology, timeless wisdom, and real-life experience come together to help you build healthier, deeper, and more meaningful relationships. Let's continue. When people think of confidence, they often imagine someone who walks into every room demanding attention. Someone who never doubts themselves. Someone who always knows exactly what to say. But real confidence rarely looks like that. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't compete. It doesn't compare. It doesn't seek constant reassurance. It simply knows its own value. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Those words remind us that our past may explain us, but it doesn't have to define us. Maybe you've been rejected. Maybe you've trusted the wrong people. Maybe you've stayed too long in relationships that slowly chipped away at your confidence. Those experiences matter, but they are chapters. They are not the entire story. Steve Harvey often reminds people that you teach others how to treat you. Think about that. If you constantly ignore your own needs, others eventually learn to ignore them too. If you constantly apologize for taking up space, people begin expecting you to stay small. Confidence changes that. A confident person doesn't need to convince others of their worth. Their actions speak before their words ever do. Confidence isn't about believing you're better than everyone else. It's believing you're enough without trying to become someone else. That's why confident people don't chase. They don't manipulate. They don't play games. They don't beg someone to stay. They understand something important. The people who are meant for them won't require endless convincing. Steve Harvey once said that when a man truly values a woman, his actions leave very little room for confusion. He doesn't expect her to guess. He shows consistency. He communicates. He makes room for her in his life. And that truth works both ways. Healthy love isn't built on uncertainty. It's built on clarity. Carl Jung spent much of his life studying what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your authentic self. He believed that too many people spend their lives wearing masks, trying to become what everyone else expects, instead of becoming who they truly are. That's why he also wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Notice he called it a privilege, not something automatic. Because becoming yourself takes courage. It means letting go of people who only loved the version of you that stayed quiet. It means disappointing people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. It means choosing authenticity even when it's uncomfortable. But that's exactly where real confidence is born. Now let's talk about the final key, being open to possibilities. This may sound simple, but it's where many people unknowingly block the very love they've been praying for. Sometimes we become attached to a very specific picture. He must look a certain way, earn a certain income, have a particular career, share every hobby, fit every box on our checklist. There's nothing wrong with standards. Healthy standards protect your future, but rigid expectations can keep extraordinary people outside the door. Steve Harvey has shared countless stories about couples who almost never happened because one person nearly dismissed the other over something superficial. Real compatibility isn't about identical hobbies. It's about shared values, mutual respect, kindness, emotional maturity, trust. Those qualities create lasting relationships, not checklists. Carl Jung believed growth always requires stepping into the unknown. Love is no different. Sometimes the greatest gift arrives in a package you never expected. The quiet man instead of the loud one. The patient listener instead of the smooth talker. The emotionally available partner instead of the exciting mystery. Many people spend years chasing chemistry while overlooking character. Yet character is what sustains love long after the butterflies settle. Being open doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means remaining curious enough to recognize goodness, even when it arrives differently than you imagined. So let's bring everything together. The 5 keys we've explored aren't separate lessons. They're one complete foundation. First, know yourself, because clarity attracts clarity. You cannot invite someone into a life you haven't taken time to understand yourself. Second, be authentic. Stop performing. Stop pretending. The right person deserves the real you. Third, establish healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks. They allow healthy love to enter while keeping disrespect outside. Fourth, build quiet confidence. Confidence isn't loud. It's peaceful. It's knowing your worth, whether someone notices or not. And finally, stay open to possibilities. Because life often surprises us with people who don't match our expectations, but perfectly match our hearts. Perhaps that's why Carl Jung believed that transformation begins inside, not outside. The relationship you've been waiting for may arrive tomorrow, or next year, or when you least expect it. But the person who receives that love with wisdom, that person is being created today. Every time you choose healing instead of bitterness, every time you choose honesty over pretending, every time you respect yourself enough to walk away from what diminishes you, you're becoming someone capable of building extraordinary love. Steve Harvey often says that you should never lower your standards just because you're tired of waiting. Waiting with self-respect is always better than rushing into the wrong relationship, because loneliness eventually passes. But the consequences of choosing someone who consistently disrespects your heart can last for years. So don't confuse being alone with being behind. Everyone's journey has its own timing. Focus on becoming the person you're meant to become. Trust that the right relationship will meet you there. And before we part, remember this. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps that is the greatest secret to love. Not becoming someone another person will choose, but becoming someone you are proud to be, whether anyone is watching or not. Because when you truly know yourself, when you live authentically, when you protect your peace with healthy boundaries, when you carry quiet confidence, and when you remain open to life's unexpected possibilities, you no longer chase love from a place of emptiness. You attract it from a place of wholeness. The right relationship won't ask you to betray yourself. It won't require endless guessing games. It won't demand that you earn your worth. Instead, it will feel like two emotionally healthy people choosing each other every day with honesty, respect, trust, and love. Keep growing. Keep healing. Keep believing that the work you're doing today is preparing you for the relationship you deserve tomorrow. The love you're searching for begins with the person you become. And perhaps that person is already emerging. Thank you for watching the Love and Relationship Lab. If this video encouraged you or gave you a new perspective on love and relationships, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need to hear this message today. Every like, every comment, and every subscription helps this channel grow and allows us to continue creating thoughtful, inspiring content for people seeking healthier and more meaningful relationships. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Which of the 5 keys resonated with you the most and why? Your story may be exactly the encouragement someone else needs today. Until next time, take care of yourself. Keep growing, keep loving wisely, and remember, the strongest relationships are built by people who first learn how to build a beautiful relationship with themselves. Thank you for being part of the Love and Relationship Lab. I'll see you in the next video.